Hello, my name is Anna Franklin, and I am a consultant with the Program Quality and Improvement Branch. Welcome to our presentation of written program policies for center-based programs. Let's look at the agenda for today's presentation. Today's webinar will cover introductions and housekeeping, the purpose of today's training, where to find the requirements in regulations, essential components of the handbook, attachments, and next steps. Presenting with me today is Education Administrator for the PQI Central Branch, Patricia Rodriguez. If you have questions following this presentation, we encourage you to reach out to your assigned PQI consultant for support. The purpose of today's webinar is to support your program's development of your written information and program policies, which comprise your handbook. While some information may be familiar, the regulations and guidance are updated regularly, and handbooks should be reviewed at least annually to ensure that the information is current and correct. Today's presentation will walk you through each section of the handbook, identify what is required, and highlight some common errors that are found during contract monitoring reviews. Our goal in creating this presentation is that you are able to use the slides as a reference to help you build out your agency's handbook. At the beginning of each section, we have included a checklist of the information that is required for that area. While we will cover some of these items and describe the requirements, we want to leave some components for your program to design based on the unique features of your program. Because of this, you may notice that some items may be listed on the checklist but do not have a corresponding slide. The requirements for this presentation originate from Welfare and Institutions Code, which is the law that tells agencies what they must do to do business with the state, the California Code of Regulations Title V, which is the administration of the law and tells agencies how they can administer the law. Funding Terms and Conditions, or FTs and Cs, which spells out the conditions that each contractor is required to adhere to as a condition of the contract with the California Department of Social Services. And Child Care Bulletins, which provide guidance and information, describe existing requirements and processes, and inform contractors about changes in governing statutes and authority, formally announce upcoming funding opportunities, and provide guidance on implementation and provisions of statutes. We will begin by looking at an overview of the essential components of your program's handbook. The Program Integrity Monitoring Tool contains an appendix to help ensure your handbook contains all the essential components. Appendix A lists the written policies that must be present, broken down by contract type. Please reference this appendix when reviewing your handbook annually. Your PQI consultant may be able to provide guidance or examples of policies developed by other contractors if you need assistance. You may choose to start your handbook with a welcome letter, mission statement, and overview of your program's offerings. Then include your program's philosophy, goals, and objectives. In the next section, you'll want to detail how families can qualify for your program, how they're selected, the steps in the enrollment process, and how they continue in the program once their initial certification approaches expiration. Finally, list your program's specific policies and include an acknowledgement form for families to sign and return. Your program should make every effort to ensure that your written policies for families are offered in multiple languages, especially those spoken by the families served by your program. The first component of the handbook is a welcome letter or statement from the director or administrative team. This is a great way to introduce the program and help families feel like an important part of your school community. Please note that the regulations do not require that a welcome letter be included, but it is considered a best practice. The next component is a mission statement. Sharing your mission statement, philosophy, and program goals and objective carries great meaning. These statements are tools to express the purpose and intention of your program and an overview of services that you provide to families. Now I'll hand the presentation to Patricia to cover the program overview.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we will look at program overview information to provide families of a general overview of your program. This information should include ages of children served, days and hours of operation, locations, open door policy, prohibition against religious instruction or worship statement, equal access, Americans with Disabilities Act ADA statement, and non-discrimination policy. The open door policy is required to notify parents of their right to access the program at all times during operational hours and promotes collaborative relationships with families. Parents should feel welcomed and encouraged to participate in their child's program. Title V regulation states that contractors shall not provide nor be reimbursed for childcare and development services which include religious instruction or worship. To meet this regulation, programs are required to include a statement informing parents and community that the child care and development services being provided do not include religious instruction or worship. All contractors must have a non-discrimination policy. No person in the state of California shall, on the basis of race, national origin, ethnic group identification, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, color, genetic information, or disability should be denied services or any benefits from programs funded by any state agencies. Areas of common technical assistance include days and hours of operation. Reduction below CCDD approved minimum days of operation, or MDO, require communication to your assigned PQI consultant. When any changes to your MDO are needed, contractors must reach out to their assigned consultant. Days cannot be reduced, changed, or increased without a program narrative change request. Next, we will look at program philosophy, goals, and objectives. In this section, we will be reviewing desired results developmental profile, community involvement, education program, environmental rating scale, health and social services, nutrition, parent involvement in education, program self-evaluation process, staff development. These areas communicate to families what they can expect to see and how they can participate in your programs. Please note that your program's philosophy, goals, and objectives should be reflective of the cultural and linguistic characteristics of the families you serve. If you have a governing body, such as a board of directors, ensure they approve your program's philosophy, goals, and objectives. The desired results system is designed to improve the quality of programs and services to all children from birth through 12 years of age. Programs can use this area to share with families how the DRDP data is utilized to plan and conduct developmentally appropriate activities that support children's learning and development. Programs should provide a description of the DRDP assessment process and the goal of your program for using the DRDP tool, informing families how DRDP assessments are completed over time. Include program applicable information such as who receives assessments and the frequency, how parents are informed of the findings, and how parents are partners in furthering their child's development. Additionally, this is an opportunity to share with your families how teachers and families work in collaboration and are available to meet with parents to discuss their child's development, how your program provides families with observation-based information on their child's development, and how your program can partner with local schools to support transitions into public school when applicable. The educational program component is the standard for child development and education that shall include the following: program approach that is developmentally, linguistically, and culturally appropriate. Consider what your teaching practices are and what activities, materials, and experiences support children's development in social, emotional, cognitive, language, numeracy development, emerging literacy, creativity, and health and safety. Inclusion of children with disabilities. Consider how you are inclusive of children with special needs. Encouragement of respect for the feelings and rights of others. Support of children's social and emotional development. This is an area where you can describe how your program supports children's individual development in a group setting and how your environments, indoors and outdoors, play an essential role in providing the development of each child's cognitive, physical, and language skills. You would also include providing for the development of each child's cognitive and language skills, promote each child's physical development, and promote and maintain practices that are healthy and safe. This section applies to direct services only. In this section, you want to notify families that you serve children nutritious meals and snacks that are culturally and developmentally appropriate at no additional cost. Programs are required to meet the nutritional requirements specified by the CACFP, Child and Adult Care Food Programs, or NSLP, National School Lunch Program. The Parent Involvement and Education section is where your program will communicate how you engage parents and how parents can expect your program to provide information to them, encouraging their active participation in their child's experience and development, including parent orientation, where parents receive information to acclimate them to your program specifics and requirements, parent conferences and parent meetings with program staff, an open door policy that is encouraging to parents to participate, involvement in daily activities, establishing a parent advisory committee to engage and advise on issues related to services to families and children, sharing information concerning their child's progress. Contractors can determine what frequency of meetings work for them and their families. However, CDSS highly encourages contractors to create a meaningful parent involvement and education component that allows families to provide their suggestions and feedback on issues related to services to families and children in a meaningful way. Written program policies for staff development program include how programs identify training needs for staff or service providers, include staff and provider input. Including staff and provider input is important in order to identify needs. Written job descriptions should include an overview of job roles and responsibilities, required education and qualifications. An orientation plan for new employees supports success for employees and establishes consistent practices for onboarding. Written performance evaluations provide opportunities for feedback, growth, acknowledgement, and goal setting in a set cycle. The frequency of performance evaluations may be determined by the contractor's collective bargaining agreement with their employees. Staff development opportunities can be made available in multiple ways, including but not limited to staff development days, in-person training, Zoom trainings, and hybrid methods. An internal communication system can consist of emails, texts, written logs, and other methods that ensure staff have the information they need to perform assigned duties. This section details how contractor staff support provider participants in the network. This would include the orientation plan, professional development opportunities related to fetch-in requirements and needs, communication and information systems to support children and families, coaching and on-site visits with a focus on environment rating scale, DRDP, nutrition, and age-appropriate activities. Monitoring requirements include quality standards and periodic assessment of program quality in each family childcare home affiliated with the network, Assuring that a developmental profile is completed for each child based on observations of network staff in consultation with the provider. The contractor has the responsibility for rating, data analysis, and planning, meaning the contractor is responsible for completion and monitoring of these activities and includes the provider as a collaborator. Here are some common areas where support with technical assistance is often provided. You can avoid these by ensuring you have board approval as applicable for written policies, specifically regarding diapering and field trip policies, reviewing your existing written policies to check for the 9 areas that we have reviewed, use information and language found in 5 CCR, be aware of word selections and statements. For example, parents should be encouraged and may volunteer instead of requiring parents to volunteer, participate in fundraising, or make donations of any kind, as this would be in conflict with Title V regulations. I will now pass the presentation back to Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. We will now go into the section on how families qualify for the program. This section of your handbook will cover eligibility, income, family size, need, and family fees. This portion of your handbook should provide families with an overview of the information they'll need to provide to qualify for your program and what documentation is required to verify eligibility. Describe each of the eligibility categories and what documentation a family will need to provide to verify this information. A family is eligible for child care and development services when the parent is a current aid recipient, income eligible, experiencing homelessness, or one whose children are recipients of protective services, or at risk of being neglected, abused, or exploited. Use this area to indicate what types of documentation can be used to validate each category. A new eligibility category was recently introduced that includes a family who has a member of its household who is certified to receive benefits from specific means-tested government programs, including Medi-Cal, CalFresh, the California Food Assistance Program, the California Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, known as WIC, the Federal Food Distribution Program on Indian Reservations, Head Start, Early Head Start, and CalWorks. Remember that this applies to any member of the household counted in the family size that is certified to receive benefits from a means-tested government program. Please see CCB 23-04 for more detailed information and guidance regarding categorical eligibility. In this section, describe what is considered total countable income, including but not limited to gross wages or salary, commissions, overtime, tips, and bonuses, cash aid, and spousal support or child support received from the former spouse or absent parent. This applies to all income of the individuals counted in the family size. Additionally, you may want to describe how income is calculated based on the documentation the family describes. Please see Title V, Section 18078 for a complete list of countable income. The family size section of your handbook should help enrolling families determine who in their household is counted in their family size. Documentation is required to verify each person counted in the family size. Family means the parents and the children for whom the parents are responsible, who comprise the household in which the child receiving services is living. For purposes of income eligibility and family fee determination, when a child and that child's siblings are living in a family that does not include their biological or adoptive parent, family shall be considered the child and related siblings. The need criteria section specifies the different types of need for child care services and the documentation required to verify the family's need. The different types of need are as follows: employment, including self-employment, employment in the home or a licensed family daycare home, seeking employment, educational programs, vocational training, parental incapacity, homelessness, seeking permanent housing, and child protective services or at risk. Use this section to indicate what types of documentation can be used to validate each need and that each adult counted in the family size may have more than one reason for needing care. Under family fees, explain how family fees are assessed, when they are due, and the steps taken if fees are delinquent. Some programs include the family fee schedule as a handout during enrollment or embed the chart directly in this section of the handbook. Family fees shall be assessed at initial certification, recertification, or when a parent requests a recalculation of income for fee reduction. Assessment is based on hours of certified need, income, and family size. Additionally, families should be offered a payment plan for outstanding fees. The family fee section should also include exceptions to fees for the following circumstances: CPS or at risk if waived in a written referral by a legally qualified professional or the CPS worker, children enrolled in the severely handicapped program, federal-based migrant program, families receiving CalWORKs cash aid, families with an income level that in relation to family size is less than the first entry in the family fee schedule. Some common technical assistance we provide in the How to Qualify section is that at risk and CPS are not the same. Programs only accepting a birth certificate instead of other reliable documentation indicating the relationship of the child to the family member, the qualifying criteria, and the income ceilings not being current. I will now pass the presentation back to Patricia.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we will look at how families are selected. Contractors are required to maintain a current waitlist and procedure in accordance with admissions priorities, contacting applicants in order of priority from the waitlist. This can be done through an internal waitlist, or a contractor may choose to utilize the centralized eligibility list when available. Families are ranked by family size and income using the revised state median income ceilings and income ranking table issued each fiscal year by California Department of Social Services through a child care bulletin. Families identified with the lowest ranking are selected first from the waitlist from identified priorities. Contractor written policy shall inform families and the public of enrollment priorities. First priority must be given to families whose children are recipients of child protective services or who are at risk of being neglected, abused, exploited, and present a written referral from a legal, medical, or social services agency. Children receiving protective services through the local county welfare department shall be enrolled before children identified as at risk of being neglected, abused, or exploited. If an agency is unable to enroll a child in this first priority category, the agency shall refer the child's parent or guardian to local resources and referral services so that services for the child can be located. Second priority is given to all children and families who are not within the first priority for admission and shall be admitted by ranking determination based on family size and income, with the lowest ranked family admitted first. When two or more families have the same income ranking, the family that has a child with exceptional needs shall be admitted first. If a determination cannot be made, the family whose home language is other than English shall be admitted. Refer to CCB 2306 for additional information. When two or more families have the same ranking and none have a child with exceptional needs or a home language other than English, the family that has been on the waiting list the longest shall be admitted first. Technical assistance issued in this section include not having a waiting list procedure, incorrectly ranking families, and ranking an individual child in the family instead of the whole family. These can be avoided by ensuring programs have a waitlist procedure, regardless of waitlist need, that follows current priorities, guidance, and utilizes the most current family size and income ranking tool. Next, we will review the enrollment process. When informing families of the enrollment process, the following items must be included. Notification process. Documents required for income, family size, and need. Certification process. Notice of action. This will provide information on what to expect during the enrollment process, including how they may be contacted and what documents will be required to determine income, family size, and need. Information on the certification process and explanation of notice of actions and when they are issued make clear to the parent or guardian when they are considered enrolled and notifies them of their appeal rights. When determining the family's total countable income, parents must provide appropriate documentation that may vary depending on each family's unique situation. Inform enrolling families of documentation needed to verify family income for the purpose of determining whether a family is income eligible and determining a family fee if applicable. Provide an overview of what documentation may be needed, such as pay stubs, signed release authorization, a signed release authorization authorizing the contractor to contact the employer, or a copy or verification of means tested application income for families with a member counted in the family size that is a recipient of a means tested government program. Written policies should inform families and the public of the need requirements for services. Parents may have more than one need and should identify all that apply during the enrollment process. To be eligible for services, at least one need status from the listed need categories must be met, in addition to meeting the income eligibility. Inform parents of this and the requirement to provide records demonstrating the family has a need for receiving child care services based on one of the following: CPS at risk, employment, seeking employment, homelessness, seeking permanent housing, vocational training, educational program, and parental incapacity. A notice of action informs families of initial approval for services and changes moving forward. Written policies should inform parents and guardians that this will be used to communicate determinations and changes. A notice of action is issued to the enrolling parent or guardian when services are approved or service changes occur, such as denial, disenrollment, delinquent fees, and changes to services. These include at certification, at recertification, when changes that affect need, fees, and eligibility occur, when the family is to be disenrolled from the program, when the family fee is delinquent.
Now that we have supported families' understanding of how to qualify and enroll in the program, we want to let them know how to stay in the program beyond the initial certification. Topics that should be covered in this section include 24-month recertification, notification of changes, a family's right to voluntarily request changes, agency policies, procedures, and program requirements, disenrollment policies, and finally, information on suspension and expulsion. This section gives an overview of the recertification timeline and the duration of their eligibility. Information should include the certification time period of 24 months unless the family receives services under a CalWORK Stage 1, 2, or 3 program, which is limited to not less than 12 months of eligibility, the recertification timeline and associated deadline, and what happens when a family does not provide the documentation needed to recertify. Now let's go over the exceptions which may change the services prior to 24 months. Also include information about when a family is required to notify the agency of changes to income, contact information, or address. When a family is initially certified or recertified on the basis of income eligibility, they must be informed of the requirement to report if their income changes to exceed 85% of the state median income, or SMI. Reference 5 CCR 18082.2 for more details on this requirement. Families should also let you know if there is a change to their contact information or address. You should be able to reach them by phone in case of emergency and send program information to a current address. In addition, families should be made aware of their right to voluntarily request changes, to reduce their family fee, or update their certified schedule. They must include documentation to support these changes. While we make every effort to recertify families after their initial certification expires, disenrollment may happen at recertification if the family's income exceeds the 85% of SMI, when the parent or child changes residency outside of California, when there is substantiated evidence of fraud that invalidates the initial certification or recertification, failure to make progress in an educational program or vocational training program, service limits for educational or vocational programs. Families should not be disenrolled from the program before recertification unless the family's income exceeds 85% SMI when reported by the parent. If the parent or child changes residency outside of California, if there is substantiated evidence of fraud that invalidates the initial certification or recertification, when the family has abandoned care pursuant to section 18066.5, for non-payment or delinquent fees, for expulsion for persistent and serious behavior after pursuing and documenting reasonable steps to maintain the child's safe participation in the program. We will go over this more in a subsequent slide. In this section, detail your agency's continuity of care policy. This describes how a family's eligibility for services may be transferred to another program administering state or federally funded childcare prior to the end of the certification period. Families in center-based programs must be made aware of the steps the agency will take to support the staff, including family child care home provider, child, and family if the child is exhibiting persistent and serious behaviors. This section includes a list of resources used to support the agency staff, specific behaviors that would warrant suspension or expulsion, and what resources will be provided to the family to help them access support. Include appeal information in the section that leads the family directly to the California Department of Social Services if they disagree with the circumstances regarding their child's suspension or expulsion. For family child care home education networks, your handbook will outline the separate roles of the contractor and provider in the event that a child's behavior meets the definition of serious and persistent. The contractor must respond timely to the provider's request for support and facilitate the partnership between the family and any community resources. The provider must document the behaviors and report all relevant information to the contractor. The contractor and provider will co-develop a plan to ensure the safe participation of all children in the program. Please refer to CCB 24-23 for more guidance on this topic. Some areas of common technical assistance for this section include agencies requiring families to notify the agency of changes in family income that does not exceed the 85% SMI, family size, or the need for services prior to the expiration of the 24-month certification, and not having a suspension and expulsion policy. Some handbooks have not been updated with this new requirement. Please refer to CCB 23-24 to ensure you are informed on the requirements for this policy. I will now turn the presentation back over to Patricia.
Thank you, Anna. We will now move into the program policies portion of the handbook. Your parent handbook should provide parents information on policies specific to attendance, signing in and out daily, and absences, abandonment of care, disenrollment, health and safety policies, and delinquent fees. Daily regular signing in and out of children is required by law for the safety and supervision of the children and for program fiscal accountability. The parent or other authorized adult must enter the time of arrival and departure on the sign in and out sheet and sign with a full signature. A good practice is to inform parents at enrollment that their signatures on their application for services will be the signatures that you expect to see on their sign in and out page. Your absence policy informs parents and guardians of absence categories and parent responsibility to report reasons for absences. The following are examples of absence categories: illness or quarantine of a child being served, illness or quarantine of the parent, family emergency. Family emergency must be clearly defined by each contractor. Best interest day. Limit to 10 per fiscal year except for recipients of Child Protective Services or at risk. Court-ordered visitation. A court order must be on file. Medical and educational appointments. Please note, a sibling illness could be listed as a family emergency if the agency's attendance policy clearly defines that a sibling illness falls under the category of a family emergency. All contractors need to have a policy on abandonment of care that informs parents and guardians of disenrollment when there is no attendance, communication, or response to attempts to reach the family after 30 days. When the family has not been in communication to report absences for 7 consecutive calendar days, the contractor shall attempt to contact the parent or guardian through a variety of communication methods. At least one communication attempt shall be in writing, which may be through electronic methods. The contractor shall issue a notice of action to disenroll the family on the basis of abandonment of care when there has been no communication for 30 consecutive calendar days. In the health and safety component, the agency will provide information on discipline, health policies, medications, allergies, procedures for illness inspection, and for when children become ill or injured, and immunizations. Please reference Title 22 regulations for details regarding each of these components. Contractors shall develop a policy to address family fees, non-payment of fees, and what to do in the event of delinquent fees. 7 calendar days after due date, fees shall be considered delinquent and a notice of action will be issued with the amount of unpaid fees, the fee rate, and the period of delinquency. The policy must include notifying parents that the contractor shall accept a reasonable plan for payment of a delinquent fee. The contractor shall continue to provide services to the child regardless of delinquent fees. Common technical assistance includes not delineating circumstances for family emergency from best interest of child. Excused absence is included in incorrect category. Some examples include women, infant, and child, WIC, and court appointments as family emergency. These should be excused absences. Illness of sibling as a category by itself. This should be defined by the contractor as a family emergency and not its own category. Disenrollment policy should not include unexcused absences, late pickups, or behavior of a parent. Disenrollment policies must not be in conflict with the law. I will now turn it back to Anna.
Thanks, Patricia. Now we're going to cover other types of policies that should be included in your handbook. These policies include diapers and field trips, grievance procedures, parent appeal, complaint procedures, fraud policy, and sexual harassment. Contractors may have board-approved policies that require parents to provide diapers and charge for field trips. Your agency is not required to provide these items. The approved policy needs to include specifically whether or not to require parents to provide diapers, whether or not to charge for field trips, and if so, how much. Contractors may also have a statement that they do not participate in field trips. Contractors may only charge up to $25 per child per fiscal year, and programs may not exclude children whose family cannot afford the field trip charges. Families have the right to appeal a decision made by the contractor. Contractors are to include appeal information with the notice of action. Inform families of the appeal process, including that parents may file a request for a hearing with the contractor within 14 calendar days of the date the notice of action was received, or 19 calendar days if the notice of action was mailed. Within 10 days of getting a request for appeal, the contractor is to notify the parent of the date, time, and place for the hearing. Contractors need to ensure that the hearing officer is not the same person who issues the notice of action and needs to be at a staff level higher in authority than the staff person who made the decision which is being contested. The handbook also needs to let families know how to make complaints when they believe the program has made a violation of state or federal laws. LEAs will follow the state's uniform complaint procedures, and non-LEAs need to include their own detailed complaint procedures describing the process for families to file complaints. The last policy we will go over is the fraud policy. This policy should be written to inform families and to protect your agency if fraud occurs. The contractor's fraud policy should include precise definitions of what constitutes fraud and the consequences for violating the fraud policy. Now let's review some common attachments that could be included with your handbook. Some attachments you might consider including are a copy of the parent's rights from community care licensing, a signature page known as the acknowledgement of receipt that confirms the family has received a copy of your handbook, the Uniform Complaint Procedures, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and non-discrimination policies. Again, these are not required, but suggested as a best practice. As we come to the end of our agenda, we would like to leave you with some action items. We encourage you to review your current handbook to ensure alignment with the guidance provided today and the requirements listed in the Appendix A of the Program Integrity Monitoring Tool. Please review and revise your handbook at least once per year to keep the information current. Ensure that all policy statements say may and not will or must. Update instances of the word termination to say disenrollment. And include policies to address suspension and expulsion procedures based on regulations. See WIC 10491.1 for more information. A final note that the Child Care and Development Division issues guidance via child care bulletins to the Child Care and Development field and stakeholders. These are sent out through an email listserv and are also available on the Child Care and Development webpage. This listserv is also used to share important events such as webinar invitations. Use the QR code on the screen to access the email listserv subscription page. This concludes our training. Thank you for joining us today.